All of our productions at GCTV are sponsored in part by Bay State Health, providing the care you and your family need when you need it close to home. Visit them online at baystatehealth.org. Greenfield Savings Bank. Visit them at 400 Main Street in Greenfield. Call them at 774-3191 or go online to greenfieldsavings.com. Greenfield Community College, providing access and excellence in higher education in the Pioneer Valley. Visit them at gcc.mass.edu. The Hammond Family. The Hammond family are longtime supporters of Greenfield Community Television. New Fortune Chinese Restaurant on the Mohawk Trail in Greenfield. Visit them online at newfortunema.com. Call them at 772-0838 and check them out on Facebook. Real Cleaning Services, cleaning Hampshire and Franklin County since 1972. We don't cut corners, we clean them. Check them out online at realclean.com. Call them at 413-422-1143. People's United Bank, located at 45 Federal Street in Greenfield. You can call them at 774-3713 or visit them online at peoples.com. The Solar Store of Greenfield, replacing fossil fuels and nuclear power one home at a time. Visit them at 23 Fisk Ave. Call them at 413-772-3122 or visit them online at solarstoreofgreenfield.com. Thank you to our sponsors for supporting all of GCTV's productions.
Yes, so I hope that those of you who are in the back can move forward if you want to. I really want to thank Philippe for doing this. I mean, it's not nothing to set this all up and to take it down afterwards. And it's just, he's been here. This is our 4th year being here. And I really appreciate the relationship that we have with Philippe about it. So I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
And he just told me he's going to be back.
Excuse me. Your voice is a little muffled, and I don't know if you're too close to the mic or.
All right, how does this sound? I mean, I have a difficult voice.
Better. Wasn't sure.
How's that? Better. Better? Way better. Okay, that's good. I need all the help I can get.
Should I put a little reverb in there?
I think our voice is already shaking it up.
Okay, so many of you have been here before, and so I feel like I may be repeating myself a little bit, but this group of women, we actually have been together in slightly different forms for 12 years, which is pretty important, I think, to us. It makes us have a certain cohesion and a certain familiarity with each other's work. I inherited this from the beloved Jeannie Zeiger, and that was 2 years before she died. She was giving away some of her groups, and she said, "Oh, would you like to do this seminar," which I was in. And I said, "Oh, you know, I mean, you don't replace Jeannie Zeiger, or I don't replace her." And so I said I'd do it for 6 months. So here we are. But that's because of these women. You know, if it wasn't for them, it's really a group that we run together in most ways, I would say. You know, it happens to be at my house. I will tell you exactly what we do in this group. So it's once a month for 10 months during the year. And we have 3 hours together. So the first half of the morning we spend discussing a poet. We choose all the poets we want to read. And so we spend the first part of the morning talking about that poet, which is wonderful. It opens up a whole new reality for us, because somehow we often feel, oh, I really didn't get this poet, or I didn't like this poet. But when we talk about it, it changes. And that's so interesting. And so the last half we spent critiquing each other's work. We each bring 8 copies of a poem, and go pretty deeply into them. And because we've been together for so long, we're good at it. We're good at it with each other. So, I think that's all I have to say. So, we're going to start. We're going to read alphabetically. So our first is Candace, right? So our first is, I know, I have to remember our names. Yeah, so Candace Curran, who is a really well-known poet out here. Oh yeah, good. Yeah, that's good. And then we'll just go on alphabetically with the person who just read, introducing the next person.
Well, look at all of you. Thanks for coming. This is wonderful. Wintering over. After the fish dinner, in the stale, buttoned-down house, a fat fly in crumpled foil complains. A mad hornet dive bombs, flap, flap. A spring month, lush green on the wall calendar, and otherwise friendly cats whip their tails, posturing, a zany Zen movement in the newly raked sand garden. A billion grains falling on a hardwood floor in a house of sand where love rests, stiff and clumsy as the winter bees. Can you hear okay? Should I get
It's better.
out of reach? I am hiding. A wild life, still life, a silhouette high in a stand where you won't see me when all I really want is for you to see me, hiding in braided riverbeds where you won't find me when all I desire is your discovery, for you to follow the scattered seeds, a crow's braille on black water, and for you to be a siren to this marriage of veiled desires, to lash us to the mast of the unbroken, this unsinkable, cannonballed partnership. To want it desperately, to choose its crazy impossibility, which you have found, discovered it to be so very much more than you have ever wanted. Who hung the stars? She has been carrying him out and back, the loss and rise, pierced on high in this low country's failing economy, that without him would crash a woman like her, crushed easily under the weight of derailment or nothing left to see here. She'd been keeping him hostage, conjuring possibility, but she knows truthfully only in this collision do they meet head on. And they are losing visibility in a wrangled dark of tangled stars wished up all the hell wrong. And someone needs, so let it be her to do the shoveling, find hellmouth's shaft of light, and crowbar one of them out. She will be the one to open, set him free of gravity, of fault lines. She will splice and suture, ride the jagged ridge of rodeo, its rupture and scar. And my last poem is really my first political poem. Usually I do politically based relationship poems. Okay, thank you. I'll try that. It's called Steller's Cows of the Sea, First Extinction of a Marine Mammal at Human Hands. Haven't we had enough? Aren't we just full up with it? A belly full of bad politics, poisons and policies, sanctioning lead bullets and den trophies, the licensing of pesticides and pollutants, hitting us where it hurts, impacting generations, cutting, smack deep in the family, food, air, water, endangering native populations, wildflowers and honeybees, the world's whales. See how they siren? Bringing it home to show how they can't digest this world, can't stomach it, birth or breathe inside it. See how they beach and split, modeling life and death in plastics, bellies bursting with it.
I'm Prue Grand, and I'm going to read 2 poems. Brain detritus may be sloughed off into the universe. What gift does my composting brain bestow on my garden? I am still here because I am here and not finished, having been tussling with the work to be done. Play is a gossamer pleasure. Nature now taps her foot to wait to accommodate friends more surreal, coming in and out of focus, feeding the soul and then gone, back to their own sphere, disappearing like one does just before a nap. There is relief, then, attachment to urgency, to have deep rest. There are so many of us souls journeying to a place without a safety net. Sometimes, wishful thinking, we try to meld into transparency. The future doesn't take a nap for long, and I am afraid of my own hands gripping grief instead of welcoming the swell of compassion. Who was I before I was born, coming gracefully, steadily through the thin waste of the hourglass, a mixture of unfinished business of my besotted parents, the world's great groan of collective sighs, the wisp of its loving aspiration, the DNA of what must be, and the hunger of the future, to make not just me real, no matter the risk, but all of us strangers who will bear what's to come.
Hi, everybody. I don't have to, it's supposed to go up just by itself. Is that okay? Can you hear me? Hello, hello. So this first poem that I'm going to read, I wrote shortly after the poet W.S. Merwin died, and I heard an old interview that he did with Terry Gross on the radio, and it's about other things that I heard on the radio also. It's called Homeward. If we didn't believe in homecoming, we wouldn't be able to bear the day. W.S. Merwin in a radio interview. I am on my way home. I have the fish and pie for our dinner. My hair is freshly cut and I feel a weight lifted. I pass the college and its big houses, the hospital on the left, the park, the golf course with the brook meandering through its middle. I turn on the radio. 2 children who survived the Parkland shooting have killed themselves. Sydney first, then Calvin. The road rises. The landscape empties of commerce. Sentinel trees bear witness to our foolishness. I pass the forest and the farm sloping down on the right. Gentle hills hold the town, buffer the noise of the wider world. On the radio, a native daughter, Carolyn, remembers her mother, Leona, who went missing 20 years ago. No official list is kept of the missing and murdered Indigenous women. I turn left at the blinking light. The road rises again, and I slow at the spot overlooking the far-off hills and mountains, distant houses and church steeple. From the radio, the autopsy is conclusive. The father whose baby was murdered in Newtown killed himself in the office of the foundation that bore her name, Aviel. I am almost home. I turn right, drop down into the valley, brooks full with the sound of spring runoff. I see the light that holds me in this darkness. Our little beacon, I say, knowing I am home. The second one has to do with two sisters whose parents died in rapid succession. It's called The Attic. The father died. The mother grieved all her lost lives and could not see how to make a life without him. She lost heart and died too. The daughters were left with arrangements, the attic to clean out, the house to sell. They thought of the attic like an eccentric old aunt, a bit daffy, a little dangerous, hoarding a lifetime of memories. They pulled the creaky stairs down from the ceiling and climbed up, hearing their mother's long ago refrain, "Don't go up in the attic." One daughter sat on the edge, her feet dangling through the open floor. The other one crawled through the corners, not wanting to miss one scrap of paper, a mote of memory that might tell the story of who they had been. A single unshaded bulb was all they had to light their way. They laughed nervously at the immensity of it, the life of a family secreted away in boxes, faded children's drawings, photographs and letters, the mother's journals, revealing to a daughter what she cannot know. It is finished now, its contents discarded, resettled, the attic empty and swept. More. So anyone who was out in their gardens over the weekend working will relate to this poem, I think. It's entitled The Adirondack Chair, and it's another poem of home, but it's different from the first one. The Adirondack Chair. I worked hard all day. I mean hard. Pushed my body to its almost limit. Sweat, black flies, aching back, all of it. I moved stones, washed windows, scrubbed the deck, dug up and moved plants. Toward evening, I put together an Adirondack chair that some kid built years ago for his senior project. I paid $10 for it at a yard sale. It's awesome. Then I placed it facing the woods and the brook, just feet from where I screwed the arms back into the seat. I made some food, poured a glass of wine, and sat down in my new garden spot. I listened to a different meander of the brook chatter away at me and saw the trees on this side of the house in a kind of light I had not noticed before. I breathed in the sweet evening smell of early summer, listened to the birds sing without knowing their names. A night chill arrived on the breeze. I am home in this place. I am home.
We're not catching the names. If we could have the names of the poets, we're not catching the names.
Wait a minute. Susie Patlow. Okay, so my husband of over 50 years has some cognitive issues, and that's been challenging for both of us. He's very bright and articulate still, but one of his issues has always been, since he's had this, spatial issues, building. We built our house. He was a terribly handy person and made lots of furniture, which was his business. Anyway, I'm going to read some poems about this issue between us. And one of the things, is it better if it's farther away? Farther away. You can still hear me?
Yes.
Farther better. So one of the things we're dealing with is we have a little homestead thing that we've had all our lives, and so we're getting rid of a lot of things and doing less of that. So this is a poem called "Giving the Sheep Away," and it's I'm dedicating it to Pamela Stewart, who that's her her name as a poet, but most of us know her as Jody Coffey, or some of us do. She has a big farm, and she's kindly, even though she's giving away things, took my sheep. Also, a wether is a male sheep who's been fixed. So once the wether was loaded, the ewe jumped willingly to the truck bed. I rode to Dragalis farm on a hard bench behind the bucket seats, feeling cramped, but able to see the two of them, gone now, head to tail, crunching hay. Jody met us in her open barn, and ewe and wether leapt to the cement floor. Before leaving, I caught the eye of the wether, and in his odd, rectangular pupil, I saw the clear end to our years of haymaking, cow milking, sheep shearing. As we drove away, leaves wet and orange after a misty rain, Jody's flock of pigeons lifted from a shed roof, hundreds of them, angling together in one perfect arc. A shaft of sunlight caught the slant of their feathers, and the fluid cloud of them turned suddenly blue. Once home, the barn empty, the pasture empty, I felt a hole in the fabric of the place. A piece of who we were taking flight, something new raining down.
Susie Stitch, keep
Yeah, I think we'll have to see my papers. How's this?
That's great.
Okay. We'll get it by the time I read the last poem. So as I said, he was a very handy person. So this poem is a little bit about the loss of that. It's called Gate. Each task has a distance from what it was. The fenced garden, lit by last night's moon, has ripened inside us. On a wind that was passing went the pure grace of design and fulfillment. Today he wants to build a gate, a new entrance from the east. But the clock stopped years ago, and what ticks now is unknowable. I want to step inside my blue heart and be the eyes of the world. Surely, out of all the skills that perish, surely out of all the skills that perish, more are being born. I will remember how he wished to build a gate for us, a gate to the White City, where all that is built true is built in the garden of loss. Okay. Last poem. We have a grandchild in our old age. Finally, we have a grandchild. And so this poem starts a little bit about him. It's called How Things Are Lit. The black night of old constellations has not yet thought to open its eyes. You are tucked in your car seat, bundled against the pre-dawn cold. In the glow of the dome light, I lean close to say at last goodbye. My lips touch your hand. I look up at your face, and when I whisper, "Goodbye, Arlo," you simply shake your head, not using your newest word, no. But something sadder, something that echoes in the darkness, After I've kissed your father, our cheeks damp, hugged your mom until we felt soft woman against woman, your slow shake of the head surrounds me on the back. And across what's dark and vast, stars record a history of loss. In the lit house, I see your grandfather, head white beneath the lamp. He who had asked when we awoke, side by side, who am I saying goodbye to today? I step back into the house of him, into my wish to fathom the unending dimensions of light we might give to another. So our next speaker is Paula Sayward, which we call Paula Sayward.
Trip over the wires. I have a little theme going. This June marks the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riots in New York City. The gay patrons of the Stonewall Inn were sick and tired of being harassed, and for 3 days the patrons and the LGBT community rioted with the police, and it was considered the beginning of the gay rights movement. Also, June is Gay Pride Month, so I'm going to be reading poems that celebrate and sing of our diversity and our love. The first one is Provincetown Remembered. She walked crowded Commercial Street on a July afternoon, wearing cut-off corduroy jeans, tank top, lace-up work boots, skin tanned to perfection. She had nowhere to go, no one to be. It was before she cut her hair, still hand-rolled her cigarettes, tough dyke who slept with all of her friends. The street was full of tourists, moms and dads, kids sauntering behind, eating ice cream, slices of pizza, watching half-dressed gay boys kissing at the corner, drag queens on roller skates, flying down toward the wharf. The fishing boats were coming in with their daily catch of blues and sea bass, flounder and lobster. Wind blew in from off the bay. Rigging creaked and clanked, competing with the voices of men hollering as they offloaded their fish, joking about beer and sex and the fireworks that night. She sat on a bench, closed her eyes, and listened to the clanking, the voices, the boats rubbing against the dock. Music started playing in a bar up the beach, and she could hear, and she could just make out a disco beat on the wind, knew that after the fireworks were finished, she would go down the alley to that bar, drink a few beers, dance with strange and beautiful women, get hot and sweaty, and stand out on the deck under a cool mesh of stars. The tide coming in salty and brave. The tide coming in. The next poem is about an afternoon about 50 years ago. It wasn't written 50 years ago, but it's about 50 years ago. It's called Walk Towards Myself. I touched a woman for the first time on a day like this, mid-October. The meadow behind her New Salem house breathed with the rise and fall of monarch butterflies beginning their migration to Mexico. I was stunned by their brave beauty, stunned by the softness of her breasts as we lay together, the afternoon light drinking down the day. I was not thinking about marriage or my husband, a damaged, stoned-out victim of Southeast Asia, the man at home with our young son. No, I was listening to her read Aeneas Nin aloud and watching the shadow of dying leaves waltz on her bedroom ceiling, knowing in a sharp, aching moment that life would never be the same. On a hungry road with no map, I saw a dappled mare standing alone on a hill. I called to her in the shivering half-light of October. She came toward me, nuzzled my face. I lay down my old clothes, stood naked, put on a tunic and trousers the color of blood, slipped into worn leather boots, mounted that horse. The sky was full of nothing but blue. The next poem is Outlaw. After reading Lisa Wheel, who did a memoir of lesbian culture in the Valley in the 80s, and it sort of piggybacks on this poem, though it was written just a few months ago. She's waiting for the storm, watching sky darken to pewter, clouds riding on top of each other, thunder grumbling north and west. She remembers the dappled mare, the one she rode across a field wide as sky. An outlaw in trousers the color of blood, free, frightened, full of lust, lust for self, lust for women, for the arch of her lover's back. She was young then, they all were, dreaming of a new nation, language of their own. She wants to be an outlaw again, as if it were 40 years ago, before acceptance and the consequences of inclusion. Always on the edge, excited, pained, riding across an unmapped landscape, hair flying, breast throbbing, riding that dappled mare, storm in her belly, thunder between her thighs. And the last poem I'll read is for our grandson Dylan. On the eve of your official name change. Even before language found your tongue, you knew something was wrong. Pulled at the collar of your blouse, cried when they put a dress on you, wanted your brother's things because nothing felt true. 4 years old, one Christmas Eve, you thumped your chest twice and said, "My God made me a boy." We knew then the sky would shatter above you someday. Your young, haunted self would shake off the false claim your body made. Your voice would lift with longing to say, you wanted everyone to call you he, call you Dylan John, not Emelina Sophia. At 9 years old, your parents still hold your hand, proud of your brave heart, knowing even in your fearless certainty, you stand on the edge of a wide meadow where monsters and bigots wait in the woods. And as you wander through an undefined geography, we would spare you any anguish if we could, knowing in time sorrow finds us all. But for now, you are a boy running through childhood, running with a name you gave yourself.
Okay. I forgot I was there in the alphabet. Thank you. Thank you. My printer broke, so I have to bring this thing. And tell it who I am. I wanted to do this poem, although I've done it here before, because of what has happened to warfare in the years since I wrote this poem, and how you and I heard how drones were active in Yemen and in the Middle East, and there's a whole new fold of this story. So this is called Drone. Drone of bees, of wires, of furnaces in winter, and invisible insects on a summer afternoon, of sleekly slant-winged robots pilotless above brown-crusted mountain ranges, sighting the wedding party, the caravan, the kids playing in the yard who never see or hear them until their world's on fire and gone. They, the drones, are headed homing back into their hangars, none the worse for wear. They're coming back to hands that pulled and pushed their levers of control, then punched the time clock out and turned the wheel of the car to drive to pick the kids up at their soccer game in town and pick groceries up at the store, drive the house to the house with the green lawn to cook the dinner for the kids, the spouse, seeing their faces with these eyes that 9 to 5 have watched the screen and seen those other faces blown up disappear, then typing up reports that wrap this seeing down in language torqued to show no blood, no bone. And so we wall it off, won't take it home. Must not remember what we've seen. Must never mind the mind that knows the missions that the death birds fly under our hand, or scenes that dreams will open when day walls fall down, the red flesh spattering brown ground, the sound of people screaming, throats, mouths wailing, sirens of alarm for what we've learned to suffer soundless and endure our knowledge of this deadly virus from the sky, for which there seems no end, no cure. Well, as we learned long ago, not so long ago, from many people sitting here, that the personal is the political and the political the personal. These are intensely personal poems, and of course, they're always political. This poet Jenny George, and this book called The Dream of Reason is one of the books that we read in the seminar. And as Susie so eloquently said, we are affected by these poets. And when I read these poems, I wrote poems. Can you see them? In pencil, lying down on my bed at what was called my afternoon nap. So the epigram here is where the title of this is Fragments Written on the Inside Cover of Poems by Jenny George. The epigram from her poems is, it should be enough that trees hold a light in their arms. Why have I been weeping all day? I have forgotten why. While I was weeping, the dog licked the soup bowl clean. And while I was weeping, runnels of water through the rutted banks of mud on my wet driveway ran. And while I was weeping, you were somewhere else. And I don't remember why I was weeping. What a waste of breath, this wash of disarray. How many do I get? Breaths, I mean, doled out like penny candy, like saved nickels in a jar. I always like the red ones, and who saves nickels anymore? Does this unstoppered breath inside my lungs know why I am weeping? Weeping. This means next poem. I want to have another kind of mind, one with white walls to put new pictures on, more spare, fewer objects, unreferenced. I loved you like a Baroque castle filled with mirrors. That was the dream of it. All that plump, majestic muchness I no longer want to want. Release me. Let the air out. Why did I love you? As I will never know you, even when you have not gone far, or even any away. A marriage that never happened deflated me like a hog belly bloated with emptiness. If I question everything, what's left? There is the heart split open, and the wash of anguish, and the one who watches, breathing. The librarian's daughter put you into a book, my love. All that wild-tonguing sweat of it, and also the ordinary loveliness of loving through the unfolding of daily doing. Bent back now, creased, pressed, folded into a page, the cover closed, book on a shelf like others, like it, put. It should be enough that trees hold the light in their arms. Couple more. I'll keep this arm steady. Hearts. Like an arm or a lung or a small child, there is a part of me that's lost, wandering in the dark wood, and the wolf is waiting. But the one who must go after the lost self knows what the wolf knows, that we are wolf and child, and the one waiting for return, and that beyond these layers, this. In the great braid of things, all strands of wolf and wanderer, winner, loser, warrior, queen, or none of these are just this river flowing, just this music heard, unheard, yet felt so far beyond my ken. It scarcely makes sense to be writing this, but I am. The last poem. Being gardened. A rumination on open heart surgery. Bleeding heart and blood root, fertilized by old shit from my long composted pile of it. My dear, my darling shredded skins, my desiccated bones, my cherished suffering for justice, unjust, or even imaginary becauses. I relinquish now into the bite and boil of harsh disfigurement, this rake of giving up and giving in beyond all calculation. Yet still, I'm asking, is this necessary for soul? This tearing, weeping, ripping away past comfort or conformity into the aching loam of a new day? Or could I not just wake some morning out of the shade and shadow of this ungainly dream into another sun? I think, Anne, is it you?
Would somebody like to sit down? Because I don't mind standing. Would you like to sit down?
Hopefully this is right for my height. I'll just speak loudly, so.
Sounds good.
I'm Pat Smith, by the way. Thank you all for coming. Thanks to all of you for getting me out here yet again, another year out of the poetry closet. All the way from Orange. That's right. So, I am an avid reader of obituaries, as many of us are. I've always been, but I still read it very carefully. And this first poem I'm going to read is in response to an obituary that I read recently. It's entitled For Ruth, 1960 to 2019. I've left Ruth's last name off to protect her privacy, but I'm using her real first name so as to not completely erase her. On reading these lines from her obituary, she enjoyed reading and spending time with her family. Ruth was a homemaker. That's it? What kind of books made her heart race and kept her up at night? Crafty mysteries, fantasies with dragons and wizards, biographies of her heroes? What kind of home did she make? Did she sew curtains, swing a hammer, collect baskets? Did she seek adventure at the casinos, build fairy houses in her garden? Did she sing in the shower in perfect key, love to tell a dirty joke? In her short life, she was younger than I. She lost so many loved ones, her parents, a daughter, a grandson, 2 brothers, a sister, each one a complicated tale of love and conflict. Did those she left behind know her at all? Was their grief too crushing to share the details of her life? Or was the price per line too dear for them to honor her one last time in black and white? And if you know Ruth, please tell stories about her, the people that she knew and loved. So at the end of last year, I came down with a bad case of vertigo. You don't want it. If you get it, go to a physical therapist right away. Just don't even go to your doctor. This is about what that was like. It's a little unsettled. Vertigo. 1. Bouncing off walls, arms outstretched, head askew, feet dizzy on the tilting floor. Like a gyroscope whirling out of control on an uncharted axis, darkness spooling in deep space. 2. Body and mind unbalanced, immune system activated. True characters revealed, mine and those around me. Decisions unfolding, life changes going viral. And the life changes included my retiring shortly after. My sister was great when I called her and told her about the vertigo and how unbalanced I felt. She's like, no metaphors there. Okay, I got the message. So one of the things I've been doing is going back through some of my old poems just to explore them. And so this is one from back in November 2006. It's called Black Velvet. Darkness so deep it has a nap to it and drapes over everything. Lights do not brighten the night, but only accentuate its murky folds. I trip over your shoes left in my path and am pulled towards a black hole where gravity bends into the gloom of unknown forces that envelop me. I'm going to do something a little crazy. We have, in the last 2 years, been visited by a whippoorwill. I tell people this, and they're like, I haven't heard a whippoorwill in 30 years. So I wrote about it, and I quoted it. So for those of you that haven't heard a whippoorwill in a number of years, as soon as it flies down,
All night long.
all night long. My husband and sons want to shoot. Good thing we don't have a gun.
Wow.
So this poem has a title, but I am not going to tell you the title till the end. It's a haiku, so the end will come soon. Half moon lights the sky. Whippoorwill calls out its name. Fighter jet roars past. So, the Native American legend about the whippoorwill is that its singing is a death omen.
Is it what?
A death omen. Really? Yeah. So that's the name of the poem, Death Omen. But it would give it away. And I don't know what to say. I wrote it last year, and I only feel ever more strongly those winds roar on our back. Here's another little haiku. I started writing it. NPR did a little. They wanted you to write romance stories, you know, that you could do in a Twitter feed thing. And since I don't tweet or anything, I bagged it, and it just kept getting smaller. You know, 240 characters was too many. So it's a haiku too. The reveal. Secret for decades. His hand on her lower back gave it all away. Okay. This is the last one. This is a little old too. This was from December 2002, but it ends in an appropriate time and place for us here now, today. It's called Nesting Behaviors, and it's for Sarah, who's the daughter of some friends of ours. She was adopted from China. 1. The blue orb shines outside the window, decorating the nest still anchored in the snowy branches. Climbing the ladder to secure it, my spirits lift with each step, rising above the pinched anxiety of the holiday season. My Grinch-like heart expands several sizes, imagining the iridescent winged creature that might emerge if it cracked open. 2. The whimpering baby clutches me so tightly she doesn't even notice the orb at first, as the cries of panic rise in her throat. Her new parents have flown with her from China, where she has been passed from hand to hand to hand. My arms ache when finally she climbs from the nest of my lap, like a phoenix emerging to get a closer look at that blue light, her eyes shining. 3. The robin must be mad, we think, or mentally deficient to build her nest in the rhododendron just outside the kitchen door, fleeing each time we pass in and out hundreds of times a day. Soon, 4 eggs appear, and she sits on them patiently if intermittently. Finally, the shriveled baby birds emerge, just 3 of them, their shuttered eyes opening to the purple haze of the bush in full bloom around them. Stunned, we realize her choice was inspired. An artist's heart beating in her small red breast. And last but never least, Ann Yeomans.
I'm going to go this way.
This way?
Thank you all for coming. And thank you to my poet friends from whom I've learned so much. I think we've really all taught each other. Now, am I at the right place for this? Good. I have a note to myself that says flashback, and that's to say that in my poem, and I'm going to read one long poem, there's a flashback in the middle of it where we drop into earlier time, and then I come out again. You'll know, but I just thought I'd tell you that because it's not as clear when you listen to it as if you read it. That flashback begins with the words, "A teenage girl is listening." My poem is called "The Silence is Broken," and I wrote it after I heard the Christine Blasey Ford hearings, which many of us, I'm sure, here have heard or were there that day. And after it was over, I just felt so devastated and really immobilized. I just felt like I couldn't move forward. I couldn't move from my chair. And that feeling stayed with me. I didn't sit in a chair for 3 days, but it really did feel like I don't see forward. And then I had this thought, maybe if I write about it, it will help. And it did. So out of that poem, which is called "The Silence is Broken," this poem came. Oh, by the way, I want to mention this magazine it was published in called Voice Mail. If you don't know about it, I'd love to tell you. It comes out of Amherst and it's quite fantastic. The silence is broken. A woman in a blue suit comes into a room. She sits down at a table. She has blondish hair to her shoulders. Some of it falls in front of her face. She brushes it back with her hand. She is wearing glasses. Before she speaks, she straightens her back. I see the whole length of her torso, and I begin to weep. I feel the quiet of her, the presence, the attention, the focus. Tears are streaming down my cheeks. She will tell us a story. She apologizes. She can't remember everything. She wants to be helpful. She doesn't have all the details. She understands why. She has studied this. She is here because she believes it is her civic duty. She didn't want to come forward. She's a private person. This is what she knows. She was 15. She'd been swimming all day. She was at a small party in the evening in a private home. She went upstairs to the bathroom. 2 older boys followed her. They forced her into a bedroom. They were drunk. They closed the door and locked it. They turned up the music so no one would know. They were laughing. One of them pushed her onto the bed, ground himself into her, tried to tear off her clothes. She screamed. He covered her mouth with his hand. The boys were laughing. Not at me, she explained, with each other. They were laughing. They locked the door, turned up the music so no one would know. They all tumbled to the floor. She got away, hid in the bathroom, until she heard them stumbling down the stairs. She opened the door quietly, came down, and left the house. She doesn't remember how she got home. How are you sure it was him? She is asked by a senator. The same way I know I am talking to you right now, she answers. With what degree of certainty do you believe it was Brett Kavanaugh who assaulted you? Asks another. She leans toward the microphone with a voice steady and clear. She answers, 100%. I feel the courage of her, the deep quiet, the presence, the attention, the focus. It fills the room, seeps under the door and into the halls. It flows down the steps of the Senate building of the United States of America and out into the streets where the protesters are chanting. It fills the whole city, the country, and beyond. It echoes throughout the world. It cannot be erased. She brushes her hair back from her face. Women and men are listening. Women and men are watching in offices, in schoolyards, in hospitals and banks, on street corners, in homeless shelters and parks. Many are remembering, many are weeping. A teenage girl is listening. She has shiny brown hair and a thin gray coat. She's on her way home from school. The year is 1956. She's on the subway. It's crowded, body against body. There's a man behind her, pressing his hardness into her. She can feel the splitting apart in her brain. Is this really happening? No, this couldn't be happening. Someone tell me it isn't true. Frozen in fear, she cannot speak or move. Back in present time. Then in the afternoon, a man comes into the room, the one who, if you believe her, had covered her mouth with his hand in order to silence her. With seething petulance and venom, he pushes back defiantly, asserts his innocence, strikes out at all who would question it. Some at the table stand with her, but many others counter with fury and apology. How could his good name have been maligned this way? The woman was mistaken. She didn't know what she knew. A lovely woman, but she must have been confused. They were outraged he had had to endure this. Several days later, the president publicly mocked her and the crowd chanted, "Lock her up, lock her up." I can't get her out of my mind now. I need to know how she is. At least leave a note in her mailbox. Christine, are you okay? Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your truth. The protesters who stood with you that day have not gone home. The "We Believe Her" signs are still here. Women are standing up as never before. The silence is broken. Take heart. The speaking has begun.
Thank you. There you go. Yeah. I just want to say, before I say something else, I want to say that that poem of Anne's actually got to Christine. The connection that she had. And I think it's not just... So, Anne wrote that poem for all of us, and she wrote it for Christine, and Christine saw it. And that just was just a wonderful thing to feel and yeah. So I think you get a feeling that we have very different voices, and yet we're all very connected to each other. So that's the great pleasure of this group. Last year, we gave you a chance, if you would like it, to ask us some questions or comments. So we'll just take a little breath, and if any of you have anything to ask of me or any of us, this is the time to do that. And then there's a lot of food.
I want to hear them all again.
I think you can do that. You can go online and do that.
All of our productions at GCTV are sponsored in part by Bay State Health, providing the care you and your family need when you need it close to home. Visit them online at baystatehealth.org. Greenfield Savings Bank. Visit them at 400 Main Street in Greenfield. Call them at 774-3191 or go online to greenfieldsavings.com. Greenfield Community College, providing access and excellence in higher education in the Pioneer Valley. Visit them at gcc.mass.edu. The Hammond Family. The Hammond family are longtime supporters of Greenfield Community Television. New Fortune Chinese Restaurant on the Mohawk Trail in Greenfield. Visit them online at newfortunema.com. Call them at 772-0838 and check them out on Facebook. Real Cleaning Services, cleaning Hampshire and Franklin County since 1972. We don't cut corners, we clean them. Check them out online at realclean.com. Call them at 413-422-1143. People's United Bank, located at 45 Federal Street in Greenfield. You can call them at 774-3713 or visit them online at peoples.com. The Solar Store of Greenfield, replacing fossil fuels and nuclear power one home at a time. Visit them at 23 Fisk Ave. Call them at 413-772-3122 or visit them online at solarstoreofgreenfield.com. Thank you to our sponsors for supporting all of GCTV's productions.